my name is Arlene Oak, and my educational background is that I grew up in Edmonton and I studied at the University of Alberta. I did an undergraduate degree here in human ecology, which is really the study of humans in their near environments. So that's in their near social environments in terms of family networks, friend networks, just that sort of sense of the people that immediately surround you. And human ecology also studies people in their near material environments, particularly in terms of clothing and textiles, the things that people wear, that's your nearest material environment, but also other forms of material culture. So I studied in human ecology. It was then called home economics. So I studied in that program, and I especially focused on clothing and textiles, textile design, fashion design, but also there was a program where you could study textile conservation and museum studies. So I did those courses. And then I graduated, and then I was very interested in design, and although I liked textile and fashion design, I was interested in design more generally. So I ended up staying in Edmonton and doing a second undergraduate degree in the Department of Art and Design, so as well as a Bachelor of Science in what was then home economics, now human ecology. I then did a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Design, specializing in furniture and product design, and I also did some graphic design as well. And then after I graduated from that, I worked in Edmonton for a while as a freelance designer. I worked with the Royal Alberta Museum and did some conservation. And I worked for an organization that was then called the Alberta Art Foundation. And I curated exhibitions and sent traveling exhibitions around Alberta. So let's see, I did that for a few years, about 5 years, and then I knew I wanted to go back to university and do graduate studies. So I decided to take advantage of the fact that I had a British passport. I still have a British passport. My dad was born in the UK, and so I moved to England and did my master's degree in the history of design at a program that was run between the Royal College of Art and the Victoria and Albert Museum. So that was fantastic. It was based in London, and it was a wonderful program because I had access to the people and the objects at the Victoria and Albert Museum, so it greatly increased my interest in material culture. But then I was also exposed to contemporary designers and contemporary design practice through courses and just being in the building of the Royal College of Art. So there was that kind of constant back and forth between issues of history and theory of design and also of practice. So I finished my master's. And by the time I finished my master's, I'd really been bitten by the research bug, and I wanted to do further research. So I had done my master's degree it was a history of design degree, and I did my master's degree dissertation on a case study of the Beatles album covers as kind of post-Second World War material culture and graphic design. So that research required me to interview a lot of people. I interviewed some of the people who had designed the albums and just various people associated with the record industry in the 1960s. And so I got really interested in how designers talk about their work. And that really led me to my PhD subject, where I wanted to consider how designers, I knew enough about design, having studied design myself, that I knew that designers don't really work alone. They are usually collaborating with clients or technicians or all sorts of different people. So I proposed as a subject for my PhD the issue of how designers talk, and that was accepted by the person who ended up supervising my PhD. So I moved to Cambridge in the UK and did my PhD there in really what's kind of the social psychology of design practice, looking at communication and design practice. And that's pretty much what I've been doing as a research interest since then. So I'm very interested in how people talk to each other when they're creating the material environment, especially designed objects, but particularly buildings, architecture. So my current research interest is especially around how architects talk to each other, to clients, to engineers, to all the people involved in creating something. The material world doesn't just come out of nowhere, it comes out of a lot of conversations between people. So in particular, my research interest now is looking at experiential education in architecture practice. So that's the focus of my current research. Yes, I do. I think it's very important because, I mean, I am someone who is very much aware of and engaged with the material world. And the material world exists, as I say, through these conversations, but it's actually brought into being through different forms of production that center on different kinds of materials, and then different kinds of consumption, the way people use things and engage with their material environment in their everyday lives. So I think integrating a greater awareness of that material world in terms of how we can manage it and sustain it and look after it is a very important part of people's education. Well, I do think it's valuable for a student's professional journey because it exposes students to things that maybe they wouldn't be exposed to in the context of a typical degree program. And so I think any time that you can throw a few curveballs at students, it just gives them the opportunity to flex their muscles and do different kinds of things. So that's a positive aspect of it in terms of a professional journey. But I think certificate in sustainability is also important for people's personal journeys as embodied humans who live in the material world and who are citizens who have responsibilities to look after themselves, their friends, their families, the earth. I think it's a very important part of a person's overall just becoming a more aware human of how, as humans, we're centered in the environment. Let's see. Well, I teach a course called HECOL 201, and that's Introduction to Material Culture. And that's taught in the Department of Human Ecology, which is in the Faculty of Ailes. So I've been teaching that course for quite some time, and the way I structure that course is that we look at issues, because any object that's in the world you can consider in terms of how it's produced, how it changes hands, and how it's consumed. And consumption includes disposal. So I had long been interested in sort of integrating some aspects to do with the disposal of objects into that course. And also my department chair, Dr. Rhonda Breakritz, she also was interested in sustainability in terms of one of her research interests around social innovation. So, you know, I'd kind of heard in the department sustainability as an issue. One of my graduate students had been a sustainability scholar through the Sustainability Institute. And so I was just kind of generally aware of it. And then I met with Dr. Bob Summers at one point to talk to him about how my course, HECOL 201, could be shaped so that it was even more relevant to students interested in sustainability. So we had a really good meeting. I talked about my course. Also, we talked about our interdisciplinary research interests and just interdisciplinary interests in general. Our concerns with being aware of sustainability in terms of the disposal, consumption and disposal of the material world, but also being aware of the producers of things, the conditions under which people work, and so on. So we just had a lot of really common interests. And so I was invited to be an advisor on the program and leapt at the chance and have really enjoyed doing it since then. You know, each project is so distinct that students sort of typically have their own, they come at it from such different directions that I wouldn't say, there are typical questions. I guess one thing I would say in terms of typical questions is just how to manage doing the final integrative project in terms of their existing knowledge, how to kind of blend what they're doing with what they already know and manage it in terms of taking on essentially a new kind of research project. So the conversations that we have, typically we meet initially and talk about the proposal. A lot of those kind of questions sort of come up at that very early stage. And then usually once a student submits their proposal, they have a pretty good shape in their head of what they're thinking the project will be. Then we might communicate again, and then when they hand in their project, we sort of go back and forth a little bit. So those kinds of initial questions are more around just how to springboard from something they already know and then integrate new knowledge with that. The process usually consists of a student being assigned to me as their advisor, and then they have already done some work in sustainability, some courses, attended some lectures, so they usually have some sense of what they're interested in doing. And then we meet and then talk about how they can take what they're thinking of doing and turn it into a doable project. And I would say that is the main challenge of this particular project, the final integrative project, is making sure the project doesn't mushroom into something that's too big, but at the same time is something that is big enough to challenge the student and enable them to really develop their own interests in terms of a question concerning sustainability that might have arisen, sort of in the back of their mind from another course or something that they've taken. So we want students to do new things, to challenge themselves in new ways, but we also understand and expect that students will come to the certificate already, or come to the final integrative project already with some hunches as to what they're interested in doing. So it's kind of turning those hunches into something that might be a sort of doable project. I mean, sometimes students come, with projects that they think they should do because it's in their degree area or something like that. But actually, when you talk to students, they actually want to do something a little bit different, maybe something to do with a personal experience they've had around sustainability. And this is an opportunity for them to do that and to possibly connect that very personal experience to something wider that they had learned about in one of their courses. So I think it's important that students kind of follow their instincts in terms of what they are really kind of curious about. Well, I would say find something that you do have a genuine curiosity yourself about. Find something that you're interested in enough that you will be able to, do a paper and some Instagram slides or a video or something that you have enough kind of curiosity about to carry it through to the final project. Just, explore alternative ways of doing something. I mean, one of the things I do like about the final integrative project is that students can write a reflective essay or a literature review, but they can also do a research poster or a YouTube video or Instagram slides. There's a range of potential ways that they can actually complete the assignment. It is important, though, I think, for students to recognize that the final integrative project is done within their university education. So while they have that scope and freedom to kind of branch out from traditional formats for presentation, I'm always glad when they are also linking things to scholarship, to contemporary literature, to work that's been done recently in their area of sustainability interest, because we want students to explore something that interests them, but in connection with wider concerns around scholarship and sustainability as its own kind of contemporary field of knowledge. I really find it fascinating to work with students from different areas. In the past recent projects, one I can think of that I thought was quite interesting was a student was studying education. That was her degree. But she also is an artist and was interested in art and was a painter, basically, doing lots of visual art paintings. And for her project, her final integrative project, she did a series of paintings about issues to do with the environment, and particularly in relation to indigenous ideas of the environment and that sense of the human just being centered in and connected to all aspects of their environment. And her series of paintings also looked at some aspects of environmental degradation. So she had done these series of paintings, and then she also did a PowerPoint presentation and a script for this presentation in which she looked at art that considers environmental issues in general. So she put together this presentation that included her paintings and then also visual artwork of painting, sculpture, and so on of other people. So she integrated existing artworks with her own. She then presented that at the Festival of Undergraduate Research, and she also brought some of her paintings in to show. So it was a really nice kind of combination of the actual real objects being there, her presentation, and then that integration of her own experience and knowledge from her artworks with the past scholarship of people who've studied art and sustainability, and examples of artworks of others who had communicated issues of sustainability through their art. So that was one that I remember. And then last year I worked with a couple of students who worked together as a team. They were studying for their Bachelor of Science degrees, and they did a project on what are called eco-bricks. And eco-bricks is when you take essentially plastic containers and then you pack them solidly full of basically plastics that have been discarded, so that you end up with this really solid item that can be used as a kind of structural brick. So they did a presentation in which they had studied the development of these bricks, their use internationally, scholarship around the bricks, but then they also did a kind of do-it-yourself video that showed how to actually make the bricks if you wanted to make them yourself. So I guess in both cases what I found interesting about those projects was that integration with the kind of pre-existing scholarship, artworks, you know, that kind of sense of how these eco-bricks have been used around the world, how research on eco-bricks that looks at the pillars of sustainability had, you know, been considered, but then there was also this kind of aspect in which they did this little video so that if you wanted to make your own eco-bricks, you could do that.